Okay, if we have this situation, we're finding the average rate of change of f of x from x to x plus delta x. So, if you haven't got it already, fill in the blanks. The y values will be what? If x changes from, if we go from x to x plus delta x, what are the two y values? And then what is the change in y? And that could be the change in f of x, change in y, or the change in f of x. And maybe I should have said the change in f of x. Change in f of x is what? Fill in the blank. The x values are what and what? Fill in the blank. So the change in x is what? Fill in the blank. Now, pause, see if you can fill in the blanks. If you can't fill in the blanks, well, you're going to see it as soon as you resume. Well, hopefully you've paused because I'm resuming. Now, the y values are what? Well, if we have value x, the y values are f of x and f of x plus delta x. Change in f of x is then what? Well, we're changing from this value to this value. That change is f of x plus delta x minus f of x. What are the x values? Hopefully you filled that in. And you might well have thought all this through between the two videos. So you might not need to be looking at this, so skip ahead a little bit if you think you got the answer. They're x and x plus delta x. Just as simple as it can be. So the change in x is what? It's x plus delta x minus x, which equals delta x. Now maybe you've worked through all that, but now the payoff the average rate of change of y equals f of x, I'll abbreviate with respect to x is, okay? Well, here's your definition of average rate of change. Take what you've got here and write it up. Think back to what we did down here. If you can't get it, there's no shame in that, but pause for a second and see if you can. Well, hopefully you paused, and now we're doing it. Okay? It's, first of all, change in y divided by, or change in, let's use f of x. I could use either, but since I've been using f of x to avoid any possible confusion, of course it might introduce some confusion, it's a change in f of x divided by the change in x. Now what's that equal to? Change in f of x divided by change in x. Well, your change in f of x is this. It's f of x plus delta x minus f of x. And that's divided by the change in x, which is just x plus delta x minus x, which is equal to delta x. Okay? There it is. This is called the difference quotient. So this is the difference quotient. Whoops, circled too much. That top circle shouldn't be there. Right here is your difference quotient. That's the central expression we use in finding what's called derivatives, and we'll talk about what that means in a minute.